Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Today we're going to do a video on why fasting can affect your hormones, especially female hormones. We're going to dive in on that topic. Before we do, please smash that like button. Really appreciate it. Put your comments down below. If you're a woman or even a guy and you've had hormonal issues, whether it's mood or cognitive or energy that are connected to fasting, please feel free and let me know your experience down below. All right, let's dive in. So we have fasting, which is going to be, prolonged periods of time of no calories or minimal calories, maybe some hydration, maybe some minerals, maybe a very small amount of bone broth. Usually they say under 100 to 2 or so hundred calories, up to 300 calories per day if you're doing just kind of a full weekend fast or a 3-day fast, water fast, etc. And so we have those, which can be very helpful from a, let's say, increasing telomeres, helping with stem cell production, helping with cellular autophagy, decreasing mTOR. These are some common, helping with insulin resistance. These are some great benefits for fasting. Now, we have fasting, which, in general, it's not something that you can do all the time because it's just you're not eating, your energy levels, your caloric levels are low. So it's not something you really want to be doing when you're incredibly stressed. Also, where does fasting become a low-calorie kind of anorexia eating issue, right? There's a fine line between that. So therapeutically, every now and then, a nice fast may be beneficial, especially on a weekend where you're not that busy, you're lounging around. I did a 2-day fast a couple months ago. Very helpful, very beneficial. Now, what are things you can do more frequently? There's intermittent fasting. I've done lots of videos and podcasts on that topic. We'll put links down below. But intermittent fasting is a way of compressing your feeding window. Maybe it's a 6 or 8 hour or maybe a 4-hour feeding window where you get all of your nutritional needs met in that one period of time. And then that 16 or 18 hours or maybe even 20 is the time that you're fasting. So big number is usually the time you're fasting. Small number is usually the time you're eating, and you're compressing that feeding window. Now, the benefits are you're still getting adequate nutrition in your body, which is great. When you're fasting, you're not. So your body can get more catabolic. It could potentially eat up some muscle mass, right? Common side effect. It can also help burn fat too, right? Going low calorie automatically kicks you in ketosis because you are burning fat. Also a lot of muscle too though. So you got to be careful of that. I'm a bigger fan of intermittent fasting because you're still getting enough nutrition, enough protein, enough fats, enough vitamins, enough minerals to meet your metabolic needs. So your body gets those same fasting benefits, right? Increasing telomeres, increasing cellular autophagy, that's just recycling old proteins in the body. Decreasing mTOR, which is a mammalian targeted rapamycin, that's a pathway involved in anti-aging. Actually, less mTOR helps with aging gracefully, anti-aging, if you will. And then, of course, we mentioned the cellular autophagy and insulin resistance. Most of all these issues, like if you look at the domino that really starts to knock everything down, getting insulin resistance down, getting your insulin levels down helps you burn more fat. That's going to help all kinds of different things. It's going to decrease advanced glycation end products. It's going to decrease oxidative stress. And then the benefits of mTOR being lower, cellular autophagy, recycling your proteins is wonderful, and then helping with stem cell production. All wonderful. Now, the problem is low blood sugar and not having enough nutrition in your body can actually be a stress on your hormonal system. Now, if you already have adrenal stress, so if we run like a adrenal test or adrenal hormone salivary panel or a Dutch panel, right, where we look at your free and total cortisol levels and your cortisol rhythm throughout the day. If we have aberrations in our cortisol rhythm, let's say it's lower in the morning, higher at night, or your rhythm is bouncing around throughout the day, or you're chronically high or chronically low, that's a problem. So your adrenals may not respond to the beneficial stress of fasting in an optimal way. It's kind of like if you go out and you do CrossFit for the first time. CrossFit's a stress. Ideally, you get stronger from that stress, but the stress is too much, you may not be able to respond and you get weaker and feel worse. So it's kind of like that. So think of fasting as a potential stress. And if your hormonal system is weak, right, aberrations in cortisol rhythm, cortisol amounts, high or low, and or lower sex hormones like DHA and or low progesterone, that's a sign that fasting may be too much of a stressor for your system. And how you know this is if you go in and you start doing more fasting. And again, anorexia and low-calorie diets can easily fit into that criteria. Where intermittent fasting and low-calorie diets divide is you're not eating for long periods of time, but that compressed feeding window where you are eating, you are getting enough nutrition and calories. And again, I stress nutrition and calories because guess what? It's possible to get a lot of calories and not a lot of nutrition, right? Because you could eat a lot of refined sugar, a lot of grains, a lot of processed food. So when we talk about calories, I'm always kind of intermingling it with adequate calories, fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K, B vitamins, minerals, magnesium, zinc, selenium, calcium, magnesium, and then adequate amino acids. 0.5 gram to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, depending on your exercise, is a pretty good place. And then dialing in your carbs. If you're intermittent fasting, typically being a little bit more on the lower carbs is going to be helpful, because part of the benefits of intermittent fasting is getting your insulin sensitivity improved. Well, guess what? You can also do that without fasting by restricting carbohydrates and just making sure most of your carbs, 80 to 90%, are coming from non-starchy vegetable sources is the best. So if you're a female and you already are having hormonal issues, and women are a little bit more affected because when they're stressed, progesterone tends to get depleted to make cortisol. So then the more your progesterone becomes depleted to make cortisol, which is a stress hormone, it's a gluco, meaning it manages blood sugar, right? So gluco, corticosteroid, energy, anti-inflammatory. So when you have stress, inflammation, blood sugar, you're going to be making a lot of cortisol to kind of buff out the highs and lows. Now, guess what? If your body can pull progesterone to make cortisol, guess what happens to progesterone? It drops. Guess what happens to your progesterone to estrogen ratio? It starts to skew and you start moving into a more estrogen dominance place. And that can create PMS, mood issues, and it can, in the end, it could potentially lead to endometriosis, fibroids, lots of PMS or PMDD, fibrocystic breast tissue, the whole 9 yards, right? When your hormones go off, lots of symptoms can happen, and just lots of PMS, right? Mood issues, back pain, breast tenderness, cramping, irritability, sleep issues, all of those things are possible. So if you have hormonal issues, my general recommendation is not focus on doing any fasting. Predictably put nutrition in your body every 4 or 5 hours, maybe even less, but every 4 to 5 hours. Why? Getting adequate nutrition every 4 to 5 hours is like getting a paycheck every week. The more you can depend on that money coming in, the more you can set your financial budget for your household. Well, your body's kind of the same way. If you had lots of stress and inadequate nutrition, and you may have eaten enough, you may have been eating good, meaning enough calories, but it was nutritionally poor, wasn't organic. So the more you have organic, high-quality protein, high-quality fats, good nutrition, predictably coming into your body's like, wow, okay, good. I can depend on nutrition. I can depend on vitamins and minerals, micronutrients and macronutrients, and that's very healing, especially as your body starts to shift more into a fat-burning state and you're not running on blood sugar and doing these up and down blood sugar swings throughout the day because you're not getting enough protein and fat or you're getting too much carbs. So we want to get your body really comfortable with nutrition coming in. We want to get PMS under control. We want to get your cycle length and your cycle predictably stable, where your period kind of sneaks up on you. You're not having lots of PMS for days ahead of time. Your bleeding stabilizes. You're not losing too much blood or iron because you have heavy periods. You're sleeping okay. You're managing stress okay. You're not feeling crazy at the end of the month before you menstruate or during menstruation. We got to make sure all those things are stable, because if we're already stressed hormonally and then we're throwing another blood sugar stress and your body's not stable, then that can put more stress on top of an already stressed out system. So I want to get your body stable with nutrition coming in, being a good fat burner, working on insulin resistance, getting everything very predictable and stable in the body from a nutrition, from a micronutrient and macronutrient perspective. Macros are proteins, fats, and carbs. Micros are all the minerals and B vitamins, right? So I want to get your body very predictable with that. And then from there, depending on how significant your symptoms are, I typically would work on fixing and supporting the adrenals on a specific adrenal or female hormone program. I like to have 3 to 6 really good stable months in a row before I say, hey, go after and address, do some intermittent fasting if you like. Because if you come out and you're intermittent fasting out of the gate and you start having hormonal issues, you're not going to know what's causing what. So I always like to isolate variables, and I always like to add in stressors like heavier exercise, intermittent fasting, or fasting when the hormonal system is more stable. That way, if we ever get worse, it's obvious, right? Hey, you only really notice when you're dirty when you get really clean, right? You only notice when you feel bad when you feel really, really good. Because then you're like, whoa, okay, I can notice this now. It's clear that I'm going backwards. So think of fasting, it's like a stress, like exercise is a stress. There's different kinds of stressors. There's a full weekend, 3-day fast. That's like a CrossFit workout. And then there's intermittent fasting, which is more like a a functional training workout within your needs. So you always, one, feel better after the workout. Two, you can emotionally replete it. You don't feel depleted after that workout. You can emotionally repeat it. And three, that next day or that next morning, you don't feel overly tired, overly sore, with the exceptions of maybe doing a new movement pattern. You shouldn't feel overly beaten up from that workout. So hope that gives you a pretty good idea. If you're coming into this and you already have a lot of hormonal issues, work on diet, work on nutrition, work on digestion. You may want to work with a good functional medicine practitioner to look at the adrenals, look at the hormonal system, even look deeper at the gut, because chronic digestive issues and malabsorption and infections can obviously create a bottleneck of immune stress and nutrition getting into that bloodstream. So you got to look at the whole system. And then once you're stable, and then when you're only stable, then you can try adding extra things on board there and see how you do. So I hope this helps. If you want to reach out to work with myself, I'm available worldwide, colleagues as well. Click down below. You can feel free and schedule with myself and them. We're here to help you. And I'm going to open it up for questions. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope it was enlightening. Okay, very good. Let me see. I got a couple questions on Facebook. Do your GI clearing herbs kill good gut bacteria or just bad? So when you use antimicrobial or botanical, right, these are herbs that have a long track record of knocking down bad bugs. They tend to be more selective towards the bad bugs. Could they still knock down some of the good bugs? Absolutely. Now, the benefit of antimicrobials that are herbal botanicals, is they also are loaded with antioxidants. So if you look at antibiotics, for instance, they create lots of oxidative stress, and they can create mitochondrial damage as well. Just type in antibiotic use and oxidative stress. Type in antibiotic use and mitochondrial damage. There's a lot of studies on this topic. So what does that mean? Well, there's potential side effects with antibiotics, and they tend to be more indiscriminate. And of course, you get more antibiotic resistance because they're just in everything, right? Animal feed, conventional animal meat. They're given at the first sign of any infection. So in general, botanicals are always better in general, especially for non-life-threatening infections. And they also have a lot of antioxidants and nutrients in them. So it kind of, let's say knocks out any oxidative stress that may be caused on the killing side. Hope it helps. Mold, H. pylori, hormonal imbalances, nutrition. Where do you start? Great question. So it just depends, right? If you're like literally in a moldy apartment and you see mold on the walls and you know that you feel bad in your apartment or home and you feel better outside of it, well, the first thing is get out of that home, right? That's the first thing. Now, some people don't have that flexibility. If you live in the home and you're obligated to fix it before you move, it's some different scenarios depending on where you're at. So if you have the ability to get out, get out. If you don't, you work on your nutrition, right? You work on your nutrition, you work on hydration, you work on getting your macronutrients, protein, fats, and carbs dialed in, you work on sleep, you work on some movements, and you work on hydration. You get all those things lined up first, and then you dive into hormonal first, because hormones deal with inflammation, it deals with stress, it helps with sleep, it helps with mood, it makes you more resilient to stress, because most people can't push the pause button on stress in their life. Stress is still coming at them. So we can change, one, our interpretation of stress, right? Have a good action plan so you're dealing with it, so you're in the driver's seat. And then number two, change on how you interpret stress. So the more hormonally balanced you are, the more adrenally balanced you are, stress isn't going to rock your nervous system as much. You'll be able to absorb it and deal with it much, much better because your adrenals are healthier, your HPA access is healthier, your nutrition is healthier as well. And then after that, you can look deeper at gut and mold detoxification things. It just depends, right? A lot of people, they have chronic mold issues, but they're not in a moldy environment right now. So it becomes a little bit different depending if your environment is an issue or if your body is the issue, but your environment's clean. So it depends on the two. Good question, though. So if you're like a female coming in and you've kind of caught in the craze of like, hey, I'm going to fast this, I'm going to do that. Kind of take inventory where you're at, right? Think of anything, right, as stress. Exercise is a stress. The goal is adaptation. So the question you have to look at is, can I effectively adapt to stress where I feel better afterwards, okay? If you don't feel better afterwards, you feel worse afterwards, then your body is not ready yet. And I'd say when in doubt, work on getting your body healthier before you engage in that activity. It's like if someone were to say, hey, I'm 100 pounds overweight. I really want to exercise and get healthy. I'm going to do CrossFit. Well, that's an extreme level of exercise. There's probably some kind of an on-ramp that we can get on there, right? Some kind of an on-ramp where we just try doing some resistance training, try doing some movement, try doing some intervals, right? There's a progression. Same thing with fasting. If you're coming from a standard American diet, no, you shouldn't be doing any fasting. You should be working on just getting onto a Whole30 or a paleo template and just starting from there before you jump on board. Hope that helps, guys. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you're in a place where you're looking to intermittent fast, or you have hormonal issues, you're on the fence, you're not quite where to start, click down below. I'll leave my information and links down for you all to reach out. Hope you enjoyed today's content, and I will be back later on. Make sure you subscribe and like. Appreciate it, y'all. Take care.